LeBron can't beat Kawhi, but I'll tell you who can. Paul George can beat Kawhi. And I mean, of course, LeBron can win. LeBron can beat Kawhi in a game for sure, without a doubt. But the point is that Paul George will beat Kawhi faster than LeBron can beat Kawhi, because Paul George will get him eliminated before LeBron gets his hands on him.
Hello and welcome to the Friday, December 4th edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. Hope you guys are having a blessed day, and thank you so much for all your support. Whether you're on YouTube or on any of the podcast networks, I appreciate all of you. Today we have an awesome episode back with Critical Condition Sports, where we talk about stuff that's going around the world, stuff with COVID and his experience, quarantining. We're also going to be talking about stuff that's going to be happening on his channel over the next week or so. Also going to be discussing the big Russell Westbrook trade. That was a really fun topic to discuss. And I'm introducing a new series where I call it Rock. You rock with it, you talk about it, or you walk away from it. That was a really fun segment to do, and we just discussed a bunch of topics relating to the NBA this upcoming season. But yeah, it was a really fun episode. Remember to check out all of his links that will be down in the description of this video. Or if you're on any of the other networks or even on my social media, it is in my link tree. And also, I'm just going to be tagging him everywhere, so you should be able to find him. And remember to check out my stuff as well. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. That would be highly appreciated. And for all the podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you're on Apple. And as for any of the other listeners on Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean, just show your support any way possible. I really do appreciate you guys. And yeah, I have a great show lineup for you today, and just lots of good shows over the next few weeks as we inch closer to the NBA season. But yeah, once again, thank you, Critical Condition, for coming on, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. Hope you guys all have a blessed day, and I'm going to throw it over to me and Joe. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. Let's go. What's up, guys? We are back with another podcast collab, and we have a familiar face here today. We have Critical Condition Sports once again. Joe, say what's up, Joe.
Hey, what's going on, TV?
What's going on? I know he's been on the show a couple times over the past few months, but with the NBA season coming up, with all these news to talk about, we had to bring him on again. And we're going to talk about stuff about his YouTube channel, which is coming up very soon, and we're going to talk about stuff about what he has been going through the last 2 weeks, because he had to experience stuff that we were hoping that some people weren't going to experience, which is quarantining. This guy has been quarantining for the past 2 weeks, man. It's been
it's crazy, man.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the recent news that's happened in the NBA, and I'm going to be introducing a new segment later on, so this is going to be a really fun interview. But yeah, man, speaking of quarantining, how has that been the last 2 weeks?
So, quarantine. So I had close contact with somebody that had COVID, that tested positive for COVID. So I've had to quarantine these last 2 weeks, man. At the beginning, man, like for me, I'm used to just working a lot, man. So ever since when the shutdowns happened and the pandemic, began, I was fortunate enough to still keep working and stay busy. So when it happened, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I'm like, okay, I can't not work,
Yeah.
So it was a little scary at the beginning, but I mean, to be honest with you, man, for myself at least, it was calming, I guess, because I'd been working like that, nonstop for years.
Yeah.
So it'd been a while since I had a long break like that. So I guess once you get over that, man, it's I mean, you just make the best out of the situation.
Yeah.
As far as the testing wise, the testing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, man.
It doesn't hurt as much as some people make it out to be, man.
No, because my mom is a frontline worker, so she's been especially at the beginning of the pandemic, she had to do it kind of, I think, once or twice a week, And she said
Yeah.
like at first it like hurts like hell, like the sticking that is it the thing that sticks up your nose, right?
Yeah, it's the long one.
The
Like it's
long
kind of
one.
like a Q-tip, like a long Q-tip that they stick
Yeah,
into
it
your
looks
nose.
painful as hell. Like even like some of my friends in like uni and stuff, like they had to take it and stuff like that. Like it looked painful, but you say it's not that bad?
Nah, man, it's honestly not that bad, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's over in seconds, man. That's it. You just gotta just don't move your head back whenever they tilt it up and
Yeah.
stick it in there, man. It's honestly, it doesn't really hurt. It's uncomfortable. It does feel uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
your eyes tear up a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's not bad, man. It's not as bad as I think like some people have over exaggerated how like painful or uncomfortable it is. It's not that bad.
Yeah, for sure. And that's honestly good to hear because especially like over the next few months, like I know for like in the US, like it's getting like worse, like in
Yeah,
terms of the case and stuff like that. Same thing here in Canada. Like Toronto's basically in lockdown. I've been stuck at home. Like you said you've been working like
yeah,
nonstop since like the pandemic started. I got laid off. So
yeah,
and it's been like just tough finding a job in general. So it is what it is. I mean, I've been like working on this podcast and stuff, so it's
yeah.
been like super nice in that aspect, and also working in school. But yeah, like this pandemic has like affected us like people in a lot of ways. But if like in the US, like is there like any sort of like especially like in your area, like you're in Texas right now, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, like is there any like sort of like lockdown procedures happening or like that like going on, or is it kind of like normal like in that sense?
So I live in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah,
So the biggest thing I've seen TV is like during the week of Thanksgiving. I think that's the only thing that sucked about quarantine, man. That
yeah.
I couldn't go home or I couldn't, be around people or I had to be alone for
Oh yeah, that
Thanksgiving.
was right at the Thanksgiving time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like right at Thanksgiving. So I think that was the only like hard thing there. You know what I mean? Because I didn't see my family, so
Yeah.
that was the plan. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, that happened. So I couldn't go. So the biggest thing I saw though, which for me obviously didn't make a difference, was the mayor stated had like a curfew
Yeah.
on Thursday
Yeah.
all the way through Monday. So like during like the Thanksgiving like break or
Yeah.
holiday.
Okay.
So restaurants, bars, everything had to close at 10 o'clock. The
Yeah.
only procedures that I've seen, man, is just people, just the mandated mask whenever you go into a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I mean that's pretty much it, man. Like for staff, for employees, and people that work in restaurants, obviously sanitation and cleanliness is even more important.
Yeah.
But those are procedures that should be taken regardless. As far
Yeah.
as going out though, man, I mean that's pretty much it, man. Obviously they have the gatherings of no more than 10 or more,
Yeah.
but nothing too crazy for right now.
Yeah. I mean, I know yeah, for sure. th- th- do you think the U.S. cases are going to start going down soon, or do you think it's just going to keep getting worse, like
Oh
with the
man,
way
I
it's
think I
going?
think it's gonna stay like this for a bit, man.
Yeah.
Especially with the holiday, like and I had Corey Mack on my show a couple weeks ago, man.
Yeah.
He was talking to me about people having friendsgivings and having really
Yeah.
unnecessary gatherings, man. And I
Mhm.
understand, man. We're all trying to have a good time and fun, man. And
Yeah.
I get it, man. But those are like unnecessary gatherings, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Again, my opinion, just
Yeah.
because of how like fast this thing spreads and people can be asymptomatic and stuff, and people have other people that have interact with kids and all these things that it just like some of those things were unnecessary gatherings. So I think we're still gonna see a spike, man, sadly.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd like to say that it would get better like around in a couple of weeks, but it's not, because we have Christmas coming up, and then after that we have New Year's coming up. So
Oh yeah. This New Year's is going to be crazy. I honestly don't know
yeah,
how they're going to deal with that.
yeah, they're definitely gonna do here in San Antonio. I'm like 98% positive they're gonna do some sort of like not lockdown, but the curfew thing. Which,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, man, I don't see how effective that is.
Yeah, I mean, like even like here in like lockdown in like Toronto, like I don't even think how like that's really effective at this point. Like you try to shut down these businesses and stuff like that, but it's hurting the economy. And I
Yeah,
think like what should be done like more, to be honest, is just enforcing the safety measures and stuff like that. Because at this point, you shut down like these things, like people are losing their jobs, people are doing that, like, and the cases aren't going down. Like there's like no really like the cases going down here and stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be even worse come the Christmas season. Actually, I have family coming in from Dubai, moving here, like probably at the worst possible time. But
shit,
they've been like planning this for a while, so they have to kind of go through
the
um,
move.
yeah, that the move and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Like they have to find a place, and after like we have to kind of like help them out with groceries and stuff just because they're new to the country.
for
But
sure.
yeah, so it's gonna be a kind of tough at this point. Like I kind of agree with you. It's kind of gonna be it's probably still gonna be trending up over these next few weeks, but hopefully come January. I mean, whether people agree with the vaccine or not, it's coming, and people are gonna be going to be taking them, and hopefully that can at least like reduce the cases and stuff like that, and see if that's going to help out numbers down the line. Because at this point, I know both me and you, like we like I don't know, we miss going out, we miss, like I miss going to the bar, I know you miss going to the bar.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like I miss those type of times like pre-pandemic, and
The
you know,
mask, man.
yeah, like we just want things to go back to normal. So please, guys, whoever's listening to this, please follow. Um, please stay home. Try to like limit your interaction, stuff like that. We all want this to be over as soon as
Wear a
possible.
mask, man. Wear a fucking
Wear a
mask.
mask,
Sorry to
please.
say it like that, man, but just
Yeah,
please wear a
please.
mask, man.
Yeah, no. I've heard like horror stories of like my friends like having to deal with customers who don't wear masks, and it's like people take it
Yeah,
way over the top.
yeah. It's just wear a mask. And if you don't want to wear one, just stay at home. Then
Stay
you
at
don't have
home.
to go out. Order in.
It's at this point it's common decency. Like it's like
Yeah,
common
man.
decency at this point. So yeah, let's move away from the COVID topic, and let's just talk into some sports, because um, Joe, like on his YouTube channel, his podcast, he has a lot of things lined up. So, dude, so take it away.
Awesome. So on YouTube, man. So I haven't really been hitting YouTube as hard because the podcast work. It's
Yeah,
both of them are very busy.
yeah,
So I'm going back to, this week with YouTube. I'm gonna have a video of the top 10 NFL busts over the last decade.
yeah.
Now people make a lot of those lists, and obviously we know who the top two NFL busts are in the history of football: Jamarcus
Marcus
Russell, Ryan
Russell.
Leaf.
Yes.
Those two guys. So I made a list. I'm doing a rankings on who were the worst busts
Hmm.
through the last decade, just giving everyone like a kind of a different list. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Normally when people see those kind of lists, people automatically think of those two guys, Russell or Leaf. So I kind of want to make a different list, my
yeah,
own list, my own take on things.
yeah,
That way they can see a different outcome or a different result that's not centered around those two guys.
yeah, for
So.
sure.
So I have that coming up on YouTube. I have a couple of different rankings coming out next week for my podcast, man. You saw the announcement. So this week on Friday, I am actually gonna post an episode with myself and former WWE wrestler, Impact wrestler TJ Perkins.
Yeah,
He's on the show. We already recorded. We had a great talk, man.
yeah,
Phenomenal guy. Can't say enough good things about him. I was very grateful that he was able to take the time out of his busy schedule to come out on the show. And yeah,
yeah,
man, we had a great conversation. We talked. We had a long conversation. Talked
yeah,
some wrestling.
yeah,
We went over our NFL Super Bowl picks, or the teams that we see in the bubble for
yeah,
the Super Bowl, and then we talked. He's from LA, so we talked about some LA Rams. Then we broke down a good amount of the upcoming season for the NBA. Believe it or not, we went
yeah,
over our picks from each conference and who we think has a legit shot, and if anyone can challenge the Lakers. I know we'll talk about some Lakers basketball later on, but we were
yeah.
able to touch up on that. And it was just a great conversation, man. Great guy.
Yeah,
Can't say enough good things about him.
yeah, for sure. And it's good to see like wrestlers kind of like out of their natural habitat. And I could tell like usually like in these, like I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Yeah,
Like I don't really talk about it in the show just because I talk all basketball, but I do like watch like quite a bit of wrestling like on my free time and stuff like that. And I'm honestly a big fan of TJ Perkins, especially when he was in WWE. He was the winner of the first Cruiserweight Classic
yes,
back in 2016. I remember watching that, and he's doing some good work over there in Impact. I think he's fighting for like the secondary title there at the moment.
yeah,
So I'm catching up with that, and it's just cool to see like them like talk like outside of their element. I mean, they're probably tired of talking about wrestling anyways for like how long, and they have other
yeah,
interests. They definitely have other interests like
definitely.
that they talk about. I mean, they're probably sports fans just like you and me, so it's really cool to see them like in there. So definitely check out that podcast. You said it'll be releasing tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be releasing tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
and so I'll be releasing that one. That one will actually be available on YouTube as well, so you can go in there and check that out on there.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, definitely. I'm gonna have all of his links in my bio, whether it's his YouTube, his podcast networks. just check him out. And you said you have a big announcement. You told me before the show for next week. So come on,
Yeah.
man.
So
I haven't even heard it yet. So this is like my
yeah. So
initial
next
reaction.
week, so next week I'm actually having an actor coming on the show. Actually,
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm actually gonna have. I don't know. Were you ever a fan of like Tim Allen, right?
Obviously, yeah.
Like have you seen like the Santa Claus movies?
Oh, of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. So I'm
Classic.
having Spencer Breslin, who's an actor who played Conrad and Curtis, like Conrad from The Cat in the Hat. So
Oh,
he's
really?
an actor, and he's actually coming on the show for next week's episode. Actually,
Oh, yeah. That's awesome, man. Like that's really cool.
yeah,
But yeah,
he's a huge fan.
yeah. It's crazy because like you talk to a lot of like over the past few months, people from MMA, people in boxing. You talk to like people like just like who talk about sports. Like this guy is like freaking talking about people from everywhere at this point. So yeah, definitely go check that out. It's gonna be definitely a fun podcast, and I'll be definitely listening to that.
Definitely,
Yeah, that's gonna be a really fun podcast. Remember, I'm gonna have all of his links down in the description. But yeah, anything else to do with your podcast?
nothing. We're just grinding and trending up, and it's only the beginning.
Yeah, especially with the upcoming NBA season soon and stuff like that. There's gonna be some really cool podcasts from me and also from him as well. So you definitely should check that out. Are you ready to talk some NBA basketball? I'm ready to talk some NBA
Hell yeah,
basketball.
man! Let's go.
Yeah. Before we get into the news segment, we have to talk about probably one of the biggest news from this offseason. Last night, reported by Woj, a blockbuster trade happened. We had the Houston Rockets trading away Russell Westbrook to the Washington Wizards in exchange for John Wall and a protected first round pick. The protection is pretty crazy. I know, like it can after 4 years, if the protection isn't met, it could turn to 2 second round picks.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's gonna be super. This was a crazy trade. This got NBA Twitter in like a whole kerfuffle yesterday. But Joe, what are your thoughts on the trade so far?
I think so. I don't think the Wizards. So here's the thing: availability is the best ability.
Yes.
That's my opinion. So as much as people want to criticize like the Wizards, I've seen some criticism. I feel like John Wall. What has John Wall contributed to them for the last 2 seasons? I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
TV. When's the last time I saw John Wall in a basketball game?
Honestly, same here. Like I know he's missed the last 2 full seasons.
Yeah,
Two.
yeah, and I hope he's doing well. I hope he's
Yeah.
recovered and done all the things that he's needed to do to recover. That way we can watch him play. So I feel like there's a level of improvement for the Wizards. Russell Westbrook, regardless, is a former MVP. Regardless of how people want to put it or how we want the award, he's a former MVP, and he's an active player, real athletic. I've had some really harsh criticisms. I am
Yeah.
by no means on the guy, and they stand. Do I believe that the Wizards become a playoff team because of Russell Westbrook? Yeah, I think so, man. To
Yeah.
be honest,
100%. Yeah.
especially because when you give the fact TV that they're in the East, yeah, definitely. I feel like they can get in there, seventh, eighth seed in there,
Yeah.
just because of the fact that I feel like the way this season will begin for them is I feel like Russ may defer to Bradley Beal, but eventually he'll go back to who he is. I think they're gonna
Yeah.
win games with
I
Bradley Beal
mean,
like that.
there were points last year where like Russell Westbrook looked like he was like the perfect second option with Harden, but then old habits die hard. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So there's good stretches of time where he'll be a very positive thing during the regular season for his basketball team. And if you're a Wizards fan, you want to get to the playoffs, and that's the goal, then hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
But everyone obviously is striving for a championship. Obviously, when playoffs come around, that's when it really matters.
Yeah.
He'll go back to who he is. It's the player that I know that he is. And
Yeah.
he'll do that. But overall, I think it's a positive. It's a positive thing for the Wizards. I'm very surprised that they gave away a first rounder. That's the thing that surprised me the most.
Yeah.
As far as for the Rockets, man, it's very interesting just because again we haven't seen Wall in a while,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's a good risk for them. It's a good risk.
Yeah.
Even though we haven't seen him play, it's a good risk. Just because of the fact that again you already see my prognosis on Russell Westbrook and how he hurts his team. Obviously, this team with Russell Westbrook ain't winning a championship.
Yeah.
So Wall is better than Russell Westbrook in my opinion.
Yeah.
He can shoot
One
better.
healthy.
Yes,
Healthy,
well, no,
yeah.
we win healthy. Absolutely, yes, that's what I meant. He can shoot better. I feel like he's got a better shot than Westbrook, and I feel like that alone separates him from him. Even though obviously we know how crazy athletic and all around Westbrook is, I feel like John Wall is slightly better than Westbrook when healthy, if he comes back. And I feel like it gives the Rockets potential. Now the question is what's going to happen with James Harden, right? That's my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And like the thing about John Wall is like, yeah, like the last time he played was the 2018-2019 season, which was 2 seasons ago. But that's when he injured his Achilles, and then after he subsequently like I think he tore something else like while walking at home.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, he
crazy.
tripped or something like. So he had two like major injuries, which cost him basically 2 years, the last 2 years of his career. And I think what I found like really interesting about this trade was that like we heard this trade, like mumblings of this trade like a few weeks ago, like Woj was
Yes.
reporting like this was a thing, and the fact that it kind of like died down like really quickly. I honestly just thought that this trade just wasn't going to happen anymore because like usually if they don't really like get it done like within the first day or two, like back then, you just assume it's not going to happen. But
Yeah.
apparently, like 3 weeks later, aka like last night, they got back on the phone and they're like, okay, you still want to do this? Well, do you have any sort of like pick? Well, we can give you this protected pick. And it's like, okay, deal. Like it just felt like it was something like a 30-minute conversation, and then after it just like kind of like happened like that.
Yeah, and it's funny though, TV. So last night I was watching AEW.
Yeah,
That there I love what those guys do over there, man. Great work.
yeah, same
So I was
here.
watching AEW, man, and I guess that's the time when this trade broke.
Yeah,
I had my alerts on silent just because I was watching the show.
yeah,
That had a great card, and then I look and I see that ESPN, like I have the ESPN app. It said like breaking news, but I didn't pay attention to it because usually I'm getting notifications from like every other like sport, man.
yeah,
So when I looked at it, I looked at Bleacher. Bleacher, I love the guys there. They do great work too.
yeah,
Bleacher, I clicked on there and they're saying James Harden wants to stay despite Russell Westbrook trade. I'm like, what? What happened? He got traded, and I started like scrolling.
yeah.
I was like maybe like 30 minutes late to the party, man. I was like, I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, and it was a crazy thing just because like you said, it kind of like happened out of the blue last night,
Yeah,
and everyone like just went into a frenzy. So like back on the trade, I just like I have a question here, like because
yeah,
I mean they have John Wall, the Houston Rockets at this point. They have James Harden. They have DeMarcus Cousins, who they signed to a 1-year minimum deal. Like,
yeah.
do you think at all? Like, is there any way of this working? Because I look at this roster and I just see a complete mess.
I see a complete mess. I think what's really gonna hinge on the success for the Rockets or something different because we know what they are, with James Harden.
Yeah,
We've seen it already. And I think the most interesting thing to me to monitor is John Wall going to be back to 100%? That's to me how this puppy's it's gonna dictate if this puppy's gonna work or not.
yeah,
John Wall is talented. He's a talented player. Former number one overall pick, and I know that we've seen number one overall picks bust, but John Wall is not a scrub. He's fantastic when healthy. The biggest question is if. So I think that
yeah.
the success of the Rockets this season is going to hinge on that. If we can get John Wall back 100%, I mean, it's going to be fun, man. I'd pay. I mean, we can't go to games, but I'd pay to see that.
Yeah. I with the John Wall thing, obviously it's a big like they just basically have two players who honestly like I think the best way like to put this Houston Rockets team is like I saw this like as like a post on Twitter. Like people basically said like this if you have this team in 2017, they would be like a top 2 team in the league. Like
Yeah,
prime James Harden, John Wall before the injuries, DeMarcus Cousins before the injuries. This is legit a super team. But in 2017, move into
yeah,
2020, John Wall 2 injuries, basically like I don't know how he's gonna be able to bounce back off
for
that.
sure.
DeMarcus Cousins, like we know what happened with him like after the war,
Disaster, man.
like a
Sadly,
disaster. Like the last 2 years have been an absolute disaster for DeMarcus Cousins, and now you just have James Harden here, who, again, I mean, he's back. He's probably gonna be back to being the lead guy. Probably gonna still average over 30 points a game, but the Rockets say that they still want to keep him. He says that he's still committed to his team. Do you think this is all smoke and mirrors, or do you think he'll just get traded eventually at some point?
I feel like it can be all smoke and mirrors, man. I feel like the possibility of him getting traded, I'd say it's like a 40-60. 40% he does, 60% he stays. I think that he
Okay.
will stay. But I feel like there's one guy, a buddy of mine once told me, don't
Yeah.
believe everything you read on the internet. So don't
Yeah.
believe every single thing that everyone says. Like, New York is an example.
Yeah.
Dave Gettleman at the time, we just re-signed Odell Beckham for a lot of money. We didn't sign
Yeah.
him just to trade him. and sure enough, they traded him.
Yeah.
So I don't buy into everyone just saying, oh, everything's fine and dandy and he's gonna stay or I want to stay. I'm loyal. The NBA and sports is a cold business, in my
Yeah.
opinion. It is. So there's a chance that he gets traded. I feel like I'm not buying into the whole he's happy here or we're moving forward with him. But if I had to put money on it, I do think he stays. I just don't think that it's such an open and shut door on him leaving. I think that there is a possibility that he may leave.
Yeah. And this, like, speaking about that, I mean, John Wall, just like last week, I mean, him and the Wizards
Yeah,
organization, the Wizards said, like, we're committed to John Wall. We want him and Bradley Beal back on the court for this season. And even John Wall, like, when asked about it in media day just 2 days ago, mind you, I mean, he was like saying, like, don't believe what you read on the internet. He basically
definitely.
like said that, and the day after he gets traded, which is absolutely like insane. So, yeah, I mean, like, obviously, like, the the teams and like the players are gonna say stuff to kind of be nice to me and stuff like that. But there's
Yeah,
obviously so much things going behind the scenes that we
absolutely.
don't know about. So maybe the Harden trade is definitely uh like a possibility still. I want to talk about the Wizards for a second because I barely talked about them. I
Yeah,
honestly believe that this guarantees him a playoff spot. I think with Russell Westbrook, I don't think he's someone that kind of raises your ceiling, but he'll
yeah,
raise your floor. So whenever you have Russell Westbrook on your team, you're probably gonna make the playoffs just because he'll just will you to that, just because that's just the
for
type of
sure.
player he is. But the Wizards, when John Wall and Bradley Beal were there, what was their ceiling? A second round exit. What's their
Yes.
ceiling now? A second round exit. It didn't change
Yeah.
for me at that point.
I think that's as far as I don't think they can get to the second round in my opinion.
I mean, that's just the ceiling. I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
yeah.
That's probably like their
Yeah.
ceiling. They're like that's like their
Yeah, like oh my goodness, like that's just yeah for sure as far as
yeah. Like I don't like the idea that he's taking the ball away from Bradley Beal. I think he showed last year that he could be like the primary ball handler. And with Russ on the team, you kind of have to give up that responsibility. I mean, because Russ is gonna like can take the ball up and down the court. I think what I like about this is that they have shooters now. I mean, they drafted Denny Avila
yeah,
in the draft. They have Davis Bertans. They signed to a massive extension.
crazy money
Crazy money. But I mean, NBA is a shooters league at this point, and if you can shoot, you're getting paid.
for
So
sure.
yeah, so I think like it could work in some aspects, but at the same time, I just don't like the idea that Bradley Beal is getting the ball taken out of his hands. But yeah, I think this Wizard team probably can fight for home court advantage if all things go well. But I just don't see them like really improving in that like like in terms of their ceiling. They're gonna make the playoffs, but they're nothing more but like a second round exit. Back like one more thing before we move on to James Harden. Like one of the trades that they were like proposing before like earlier on in free agency was him going to the Brooklyn Nets, probably for everything except for KD and Kyrie. Like, do you think with like after making this Wall trade, the Houston Rockets look at that pack and say, you know what, this is enough for James Harden, especially with the amount of picks they're going to be getting back. Some nice young players in Karis LeVert, Dinwiddie, Jared Allen. Do you think that's enough to lure James Harden away from Houston?
I feel like for Harden, he should definitely be interested in playing for Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Um, do I think it's enough? I don't think it's enough. It's enough in my opinion, just because of
yeah,
the fact that I heard that they wanted Kyrie in return at least,
okay,
and I feel like they want another All Star caliber player back. Even with John Wall, obviously we know that comes with risks.
yeah,
So I don't think it's enough. I do not. I personally wouldn't do that trade. And if I'm Brooklyn, I personally wouldn't want to do that trade. I don't know what you get out of that. Besides, I know James Harden isn't a scrub. He's a fantastic shooter, but I think with Brooklyn, you gotta like where you're at.
yeah,
Kevin Durant is in Brooklyn now, and he's in an area where I feel like he's gonna get embraced. Talking to a friend of mine, uh, him and Golden State wasn't a very good fit because you always felt like it was Curry's team and the fans really rejected him. So
yeah,
I feel like the mentality for that basketball team is, as long as your stars are happy,
yeah,
business is good. You know what I mean?
yeah,
For the most part. So I feel like they're gonna have good energy there. I think the Kyrie and KD thing may actually work better than what people may think. And
yeah,
even though I know Kyrie was a disaster in Boston, But I feel like if you're Brooklyn, why would you want to mess that up? You know,
Yeah,
I feel like they got something really good going in there. I mean, eventually, I see Brooklyn, finishing in the top two in the Eastern Conference,
yeah,
for a spot in the finals, bearing any injuries, of course.
yeah, for sure. And with like James Harden going there, I mean, obviously they're gonna have to give up everything, honestly,
Yeah,
in
and you
order
have
for
great
that to
role
happen.
players.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they should still be looking at a third star.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go into this like into like my season preview, which will be coming out in the next few weeks or so. But basically, like my idea on the Brooklyn Nets is that you're kind of wasting people like Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie, like reducing their roles, and I think that they're at an all-time high trade value, and I think you can get something good in return. I don't think that James Harden would be the right guy to do that. I remember before, like when we were talking about, like in our offseason preview when you came on, I
yeah.
said that going for TJ McCollum was probably like a better option, for that. So maybe something like that is still in the works. But yeah, I kind of agree with you with the fact that I just don't think it would be wise for the Nets to trade away everything just for James Harden,
Yeah.
especially because they've had a history of trading away everything and
Oh
basically
my
getting
goodness.
nothing in
No one wants
return.
to trade with Danny Ainge anymore.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Any other thoughts on this trade?
Oh no.
No. All right, so let's move on to this next segment. I've been trying out new segments with other guests on the show. Now that we have Joe back on, we're gonna be doing a new segment called "Rock with It," talk about it, or walk away from it. So basically, what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna give Joe a statement and like or kind of like a take, and he's gonna say if he rocks with it, which means like he likes it. If he wants to talk about it, where we're just basically he's kind of neutral on it, and we could just like talk about it for a bit, or he's just gonna walk away from it if he thinks it's just extremely stupid, because like you know
I'm good.
Joe has had some pretty hot takes on this like podcast in the past, so let's see if we can get him riled up here. So I'm gonna give you a statement. Just tell me what you think. If you rock with it, are you're neutral on it, or you want to walk, or you think you should walk away from it.
Okay.
So, the Phoenix Suns, man, they made some big moves this offseason, bringing in Chris Paul, bringing in Jay Crowder to come off their bench. And a lot of people are saying that, because of what Chris Paul did last year with the Thunder, you know that very well being a Thunder fan.
Yeah.
And now pairing him up with Devin Booker and stuff like that, and the possibility of DeAndre Ayton, becoming like a really good player. They're calling them a dark horse final contender. So how do you feel about that?
I'm gonna walk away from that, man. I'm walking away from that. I feel like look, Chris Paul, the addition of Chris Paul cannot be denied.
Yeah,
Fantastic leader. I feel like he's a great veteran. He's the perfect role model, in my opinion,
yeah,
or one of the perfect role models in the NBA of the way just he handles himself
mhm,
and the maturity, and that's something good, and that's something that he's gonna vibe that people are gonna vibe off him from, like in Oklahoma.
yeah,
And look, folks, it's cute. It's cute. You know what the Suns did in the bubble. It's very
yeah,
cute. Aiden, no, that's
yeah,
fine. But what I tell my buddy is, did they get it done though? When it truly matters, they didn't do enough to get into the playoffs. They did all they could,
yeah,
but they weren't in that position because the NBA is a long season, and they didn't take care of business before. Now, obviously, we know that Aiden got suspended,
yeah,
and there's different little issues going on there, but I don't see this team as a playoff contender. I think ceiling for this team is no more than a 6 seed in the West, and that's just
yeah,
me being polite, I guess,
yeah,
and out of the respect to Chris Paul.
yeah. I'm gonna walk away from this as well. The fact, I mean, Chris Paul definitely improves his team. I believe that they are a playoff
They
lock
are.
just because Chris Paul and Devin Booker on its own, I think, is like a good enough team, good enough backcourt to make it to the playoffs, especially with a player like DeAndre Ayton still improving. But they just haven't like let's be honest. When was the last time the Suns made the playoffs? I think it was like 11 years ago.
Was it the
They've been
Steve Nash days?
yeah, Steve Nash literally like I had to look back. I was like, when was the last time the Suns even made the playoffs? It was literally
Yeah.
when Steve Nash was there. Like it was they have been kind of a mess of a franchise over this last decade, and I don't like it's just not going to happen. Kind of with a snap of through a snap of a finger. I mean, Chris Paul, he is fantastic. I mean, like he showed that last year that he could still lead a team, and I think that him like paired up with Aiden and Booker could do really good things. But a finals contender is just way too far. And I
Yeah.
really
Hey, there's this
yeah
team that hasn't made the playoffs, and
yeah
now you're finals contenders. Oh man, there's
No.
no.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only time like that really happened was when like the Miami Heat, like back in the day, I think they just missed out on the playoffs the year before they got LeBron, and then they added LeBron and Chris Bosh, and then you just assumed that they were title contenders. I think that was the only time where like a non-playoff team kind of transitioned into like a finals
or
contender.
or the Cavs when LeBron
Oh
went
yeah,
back the second
100%.
time.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, like anything like LeBron did.
Yeah, I mean, and LeBron. It takes LeBron's known by a lot as the greatest basketball player on the
Yeah,
planet, and it takes that to get to for you to be in a finals
yeah,
conversation. No
ex-
disrespect to Chris Paul. I mean, it's phenomenal. I hope. Now, I wouldn't be mad if they were to make it. I
yeah,
wouldn't be just because I want Paul to get a crack at it, but I don't see it happening.
yeah,
It's ridiculous. People need to pump the brakes.
yeah. Definitely agree with that. Let's move on to the next statement. Um, Luka Doncic. We're gonna talk about Luka Doncic here. He showed out the last year. He had some really good playoff performances. He led the Mavs to basically 2 games over the Los Angeles Clippers, and who knows what would have happened if KP stayed healthy if they were able to knock them off. But here's my statement for you, Joe. Luka Doncic is a top 2 MVP candidate this year. Do you rock
Rocket,
with? Pardon?
rocket,
You rock
rocket,
it?
rocket, right away.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think
Phen-
of it?
Phenomenal, man. Luka's phenomenal, man. I
Yeah.
think he is going to be the face of the NBA. Has a legit chance to be the face of the NBA by just his ball play. If you need a poster boy or you need someone to take all the pictures and to be out there or to be a crazy rock star. If you want to get Zion,
Yeah.
whatever, man. But I'm focused on getting the next face of the NBA when it comes to on the court play. And Luka's phenomenal, man. I mean, the sky's the limit. The scariest part about all this TV is you see how great he was his rookie season and
Yeah.
how phenomenal he like leaped. And I still feel like he still hasn't scratched the surface on what he can
Exactly.
truly do in the NBA.
Yeah. And like just going back to like his like draft position, like I had him as like my number 1 pick. Like I wasn't doing the podcast yet, but I was
Yeah.
like dead set on him being the best player in the draft. And like many people before him, this guy just suffered from being just a EuroLeague player. People just don't want to see him like go number 1. And I think in that draft it was DeAndre Ayton going number 1. And
Yes.
they and Luka Doncic just looks like far and away kind of the best player in that draft. And I think like sadly he didn't get the number 1 overall pick because you know people just don't like I don't know, there's something about like the Euro bias that they just think that they're just not going to do as well in the NBA. But
It's
uh,
crazy, man.
yeah, it's really is crazy, and I definitely have to agree with you here. I definitely rock with this, him being the like a top MVP candidate, especially if he can lead the Mavericks to a top 4 seed in the West somehow. Then he's definitely going to do it because he's going to have the stats. He's definitely going to have the stats to back it up. But it's all up to the team and like how they succeed. Before we move on to the next thing, do you think that Luka Doncic is a top 10 NBA player
Yes, without a doubt.
without a doubt?
I think it's crazy not to have him in the top 10. I think
Yeah,
Uh,
like I think like the only
phenomenal.
yeah, I think some of the people I like debate about this too. Like, the only people that they kind of like debate like whoever he's over is like Damian Lillard. Like, do you think he's like over Damian Lillard on this list?
Do I feel like he's over Dame? Man, that's really tough, man. It's tough for me just because I think like both of those guys, man, are
Yeah,
two very cold-blooded human beings. And what I mean by that is, dude, like just I mean Dame clutch, king of
yeah,
the clutch, man, in my opinion there. And then Luca, man, seeing like the work, how he worked the Clippers, who were a good defensive team, man. And you saw there's parts in that series where I do agree with you. If KP hadn't gotten hurt, I feel like the Mavs would have advanced. I feel like that was it was a very bad matchup for the Clippers, and they were literally trying to do different things to stop Luka, and they couldn't slow him down.
yeah,
Then you see that
exactly.
clutch shot, and if I had to pick one, I would take Luka over Dame
Yeah,
just because obviously he's younger. Basketball skill, I'm still gonna even though man, Dame's such a nasty clutch
yeah,
game winning player. I
yeah,
feel like Lucas has a higher ceiling in my
yeah,
opinion because we've never talked about Dame being in an MVP conversation for the most part. He's never been a perennial person that you think, hey, this guy he has all the potential and the tools to do it, but he was never a real threat. I think
Yeah.
Luka's a threat, man,
Yeah.
to be the MVP.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have to agree with you there. I just like, I'm going to be doing my awards predictions over the next few weeks, and he's definitely going
Yeah,
to be in that conversation. Let's move on to the next one, and I think like this like definitely like you talked about it earlier. We're going to be talking about some LA Lakers.
yeah.
Um, do you rock? So what do you think? The Lakers are the by far favorites to win the championship this year. Do you rock with it? Do you talk about it, or do you want to walk away from it?
I rock it,
You rock it?
no doubt, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So their path, their path in the West, and we were talking about this when we made, we on the last pod,
Yeah.
on who can legit challenge them or how stacked the West is. Well, when you look at the competition now in the West, like who can beat them in the West? The Rockets ain't gonna get it done.
Yeah.
With James Harden there, regardless of whether John Wall's healthy or not, you're not gonna get it done. The Nuggets don't even get me started on Jamal Murray. There's no way they stand a chance
Yeah.
against this Lakers team. The Rockets have blown it up.
The Clippers.
The Warriors, the team that I truly thought that was going to challenge this team, and why I wouldn't say that they were a lock was because of the Warriors and Clay and having their full squad back at 100%. Obviously, Clay had that injury. Prayers up for Clay. It was
Yeah.
it's devastating to see that happen, especially to such a good player in Clay Thompson. It was rough to see, and they were the main challengers. Is Minnesota gonna get their head out of their butts and go out there and play? No, they weren't even sold
Yeah.
on their number one overall pick.
Yeah.
TV. So going back to the question, are they 100% locked in to go to the NBA Finals? For sure, without a doubt, because who can challenge this team? In the West, the Clippers are blowing up as we've seen, man, and all because they couldn't get rid of Paul George, man, who has
Yeah.
been the biggest issue and the biggest mistake in the history of
Yeah.
this organization, man. In my opinion, there, I know they've had crazy. I'm talking about just basketball player wise, man. I'm not talking about no controversy,
Yeah.
no other stuff that happened. I understand that that's what happened, but we're talking about just basketball play. And Paul George was the absolute worst investment, man. If your company invested stock in this guy, you'd be broke, man. Just it would be. You'd be filing for
Yeah.
bankruptcy just because of the fact that this guy is literally what's tearing the Clippers apart, and it's making me sick to my stomach. There's one guy I told my friends about Kawhi when it comes to Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's a fantastic player. LeBron can't beat Kawhi, but I'll tell you who can. Paul George can beat Kawhi. And I mean, of course, LeBron can
Yeah.
win. LeBron can beat Kawhi in a game for sure, without a
Yeah.
doubt. But the point is that
Paul
Paul
George is
George
winning
will
them
beat
back.
Kawhi faster than LeBron can beat Kawhi, because
Yeah.
Paul George will get him eliminated before LeBron gets his hands on him.
Yeah.
This guy, just see the destruction that he's costing this team. They're blowing up. Reports Harold didn't want to continue playing with that. And why would he?
Yeah.
Paul George isn't clutch. More like PG time to me is 3 for 12. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant on that.
No.
But it's just the truth, man. And like the Clippers are seemingly blowing up. I feel like their best chances to win a championship was last season, and they squandered that away when they traded for Paul George and gave up good assets. Look at Gallinari. I know he's a vet, but look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, man.
Yeah.
Great potential there. And you don't have any first round picks, for the most part. Just ridiculous. They're blowing up. They were the team that I believe had the best chance to beat this Lakers squad as well, and they're literally deteriorating before we see that. And now, when you go to the East, bearing any injuries and seeing good chemistry and how things work out, Brooklyn or Boston can give LA a fight. I think Brooklyn has the best chance to beat this team.
Yeah.
Boston, I don't know. I saw that they signed Tristan Thompson.
I'm still worried about the center position. Like they don't have like anyone to guard AD. They have no one.
Tristan Thompson doesn't seem like a legit solution.
No.
And I was looking at this TV. Boston hasn't had a center that's averaged at least 10 rebounds since 2006, 2007.
I've seen that. Yeah, that's like what was that? Was that Kendrick Perkins or KG?
It was, I believe, it was KG.
KG. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
ridiculous. No, it's either him or Al Jefferson as well. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous though, man. It's ridiculous. Don't quote me on the KG stuff, but it's ridiculous. So I'm very concerned with that, just because Boston's a team that can get it done. But if they're faced with the wrong matchup, like Miami is
Yeah.
a terrible matchup. Uh, they can get exposed very easily, and so that worries me. So I
Yeah.
think that Brooklyn is the best challenge, and that's in the finals, man. That
Yeah.
would be in the finals. So
Yeah.
the Lakers, in my opinion, just rock it, man, book it,
Yeah.
everything.
You talked about all those East teams, like with Brooklyn and Boston. And I think this, like, I mean, firstly, I rock with it. I definitely do believe that the Lakers are favorites to go back, especially because let's go into this before we go into the next topic. But Anthony
Yeah.
Davis, we signed a contract this morning, like right before we recorded, actually, 5 years, 190 million. I thought this took a lot longer than expected. I thought they were gonna do this very early on, but I think he wanted LeBron to sign that extension first to make sure that
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, just to make sure that they were together for
Yeah.
yeah, just to be 100% sure. But yeah, yeah, he's there for the next 5 years. Before we move on to the next one, like, what are your thoughts on like the deal?
This that was that besides LeBron James, that should have been the priority. They got it done. No surprise there. Davis is fantastic, and I feel like he's really gonna thrive even more. With all these additions in LA, man. Like, it's ridiculous to see how like stacked this squad is. With Schroeder there
Yeah,
now, with Gasol and Harrell, I feel like they're gonna play Davis in the four more than in the
yeah,
fifth. And I feel like, man, this team, it's gonna be ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
they're overwhelmed. They should be overwhelmingly like favorites. And I feel like Davis was the second priority. Obviously, got to take care of LeBron first, because LeBron leaves. Obviously, that puppy's not going to work.
yeah,
Without, if they took this team and you took LeBron out of it, I don't think people would be voting them as perennial favorites, in my opinion.
yeah,
Obviously, LeBron's a priority. Davis is a second, and they took care of him, and I was very happy to see that. You weren't going to let Anthony Davis walk.
yeah, for sure. And I 100% agree with you. I think like what this does too, like really nicely, is that LeBron probably for the next year as well is going to be the number one guy. But I think like
Yeah,
after a few years of LeBron, I think they're gonna slowly transition to Anthony Davis being the number one. And I think LeBron
yeah,
is the
for sure.
perfect guy to like help with the transition. And I think it's just really gonna like work out for the Lakers. And probably sooner rather than later, you're gonna see Anthony Davis is the one who's gonna be like taking over games in the fourth quarter, especially as LeBron continues to age. So I think it's going to be really good for them, and they should be um, title contenders, honestly, for the next 2 or 3 years, especially if they have these two guys on that team.
For sure.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one, and I think this transitions quite nicely because you're talking about some of the East favorites and the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets, but you didn't mention one team, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks, who made
Yeah,
moves.
get out of here, man.
No, okay, okay. So
Okay,
my my,
go.
my here my I know by the looks of things you're gonna walk away from this, but are in my opinion the Bucks are the East favorite. Are you rocking with it? Are you neutral on it? Or are you walking away from it?
Gonna walk away from that. I'm gonna do you one better. I'm gonna get in my car and speed away from that one.
Yo,
No, no.
dude.
They have a chance, man. There's a chance, right?
Yeah,
Puncher's chance, as they say. Giannis, good player, but easy to limit and expose, and that maybe not limit, but easy to expose. Make
yeah,
him play from behind. Not very well playing from behind. Um, I feel like Giannis is on his way out, man. I'm starting to feel that way.
yeah,
I had some conversations with some people, and a lot of people are believing that he's on his way out. I feel like we were talking about this when the NBA's offseason moves, started kicking off when the new league year started. Now, no, man, I hope I don't get the name wrong, but they were going to acquire Bogdan, correct?
Bogdan Bogdanovic. Yeah,
Yes. Okay, I just want to make sure I said the name right.
yeah,
So they were in talks to acquire him. So obviously, I'm sure you read the reports that there was a little bit of friction and a slight unhappiness, just because I believe that Giannis and George Hill at the time wanted Bogdan, and when they got Drew Holiday, well, the Bucks went back on what they had originally offered for him, and apparently, that's what I read, that's what I heard. Obviously, we
yeah,
talked about not believing everything that you see, but I feel like they were saying that Giannis was pretty. They feel like Giannis was pretty unhappy because he's the one that really wanted Bogdan in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's, it's little seeds that are getting planted in there for the Giannis exit. Now, I like the moves that they did. They added Drew Holiday, who
Yeah.
I believe will be fantastic. He's an upgrade from Eric Bledsoe.
Well, yeah.
And,
Don't even get me started on Bledsoe. I hate that.
yeah, for sure. DJ Augustine, who's I think is a solid role player.
Backup, yeah,
He
very
can
good
shoot the
backup.
three ball.
Yeah.
And they were able to, they believe they, so since that Bogdan trade didn't happen, they were able to keep DiVincenzo, correct?
Yes, which is I think is pretty big there.
Yeah, it's big because when you look at what he contributes to the defensive side of the ball,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really good defensive team, man.
Yeah.
The again, the issue is though when your star, because the league's transitioned into a lot of shooting, man. You need shooters.
Yeah.
This, I'm not a fan of this team either, the 76ers. What's one of their biggest undoings? We've talked about this. It's shooting,
Yeah.
They transitioned away from shooting when the league was transitioning even more into shooting.
Yeah.
Nowadays your center needs to be able to hit the occasional three ball,
Yeah.
So this team, man, it's very interesting, man, because on paper they are a solid team. You have the reigning defending two-time the NBA
Yeah.
MVP. And yeah, I was going into my football grounds there, but the NBA MVP. And I mean, obviously, I don't think Giannis is going to be the MVP again this season, but I feel like they're going to be limited in that sense with Giannis not being able to shoot the three. And I know it sounds so plain and simple
Yeah.
whenever you talk about that and how to stop somebody, but it's the truth, man. There was limitations there, and we saw that in the bubble. And obviously, I don't know how much more different it would have been if the NBA were under normal circumstances, but it is what it is. I think that this team, will not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals again this season at this point.
Wow. The funny thing is, I rock with this, and I
Okay.
unlike you. I mean, I think the whole thing with the Bucks now is that they have to kind of be honest with themselves. Giannis is not KD.
Yeah.
He's not LeBron in the sense where he's going to be able to take over games at the end of at the end of games. They have to be honest with themselves with that. But if you play towards Giannis's strengths and with the pieces he has around him, I mean, Chris Middleton, as much as people want to bash him, he's still a very good NBA player. Drew Holiday is a significant upgrade over Bledsoe. I'm thanking the Lord for they finally got rid of Bledsoe. Finally,
he was hurting the team.
Yeah, he was definitely hurting the team. And they have people they have good shooters around him. I mean, they brought in, like you said, DJ Augustine. They also brought in Bryn Forbes from San Antonio, who is one of their better shooters. They have Brook Lopez, who is one of the best shooting big men in the league. They have the right pieces. And I think the best way for them to succeed and make it to the finals is treat Giannis kind of like how they treat people like KG, like Anthony Davis, as a role man. They can't ask them to take over at the end of games, give them the ball, create their own shot. That's not how you're supposed to work with Giannis. What you have to do is treat him as one of the best big men in the league, which honestly, he still is if you treat him as that.
He is, yes.
Yeah, if you treat him as the role man, if you treat him as the alley, a lot of this has to come with the YouTube video I watched, and hopefully next week we have the guy on the show. I'm in talks with trying to get him on the show, but he put it perfectly, saying you got to treat him like a big man. You can't treat him as a KD who can get you a shot late in the game. You have to if you set him up like that, he could be just as dominant as he's ever been. And I think that if they really go all in on that and don't ask too much for Giannis, and handling the ball and stuff like that, I think they could be literally the best team in the league if all things work out. But that is a big if they go for that, because they've been, like you said, they've been running Giannis through the ground in terms of him at the end of games trying to get a shot, and it's not been working whatsoever.
Yeah,
it's definitely not been working. But if they change their philosophy and how they see Giannis and treat him kind of the top big men over the past few years, they could really do well. But it all really just hinges on that. I like it, but I think that's going to be the biggest deciding factor.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with the championship contenders, but I believe on the take. I feel like Milwaukee definitely needs to come up to that conclusion, just because of the fact that he is who he is, and I feel like what you say makes a lot of sense, and I completely agree with that. But title contenders TV for this basketball team, I mean, it's gonna be hard, man. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah, definitely. But I just think in terms of just especially like with like matchups for the Lakers. I just think, like you said, they're one of the best defenses in the league, especially
Yes.
like adding Drew Holiday and stuff. I just think like in terms defensively, they can make it work if they go up against the Lakers. But it's all about like trying to figure it out on the offensive end. And if they just go with this philosophy, I think I honestly like that idea of it happening.
All right.
Yeah. Anything else on this or move on?
No.
Okay. A couple more here before we sign out. Um, LaMelo Ball. Let's talk about him for a little bit. He
Okay.
drafted to the Charlotte Hornets, third overall pick. Um, the Hornets also picked up Gordon Hayward and stuff like that this offseason. And for people who watch my podcast, they already know my thoughts on the whole Gordon Hayward thing. I am completely off on that. But in terms of LaMelo Ball, do you him being the rookie of the year favorite? Are you rocking with it? Are you neutral on it, or are you going to walk away from it?
I'm gonna go ahead and rock with it just
Yeah,
because I feel like he was the best player in this draft.
yeah,
Um, Wiseman, I very interested to see the Warriors and how he's able to contribute to that basketball team. Edwards, man, I'm telling you, like even the team that drafted him number one didn't want to draft him number one, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. He did it.
And that's not a knock on the guy. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, I believe that up until like the very last, until they could like hold off on making the pick announcement, the Wolves were trying to trade. Obviously, no one that could have been in position to trade for that pick felt confident enough either. So I'm not buying into him. Who I really like though, I feel like it's gonna be a sneaky good race. I feel like LaMelo will eventually take it, man. But I like Killian Hayes a lot, man.
Oh, Detroit, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I like Killian Hayes. I feel like he's very poised to have a good season. I'm very interested. I feel like he can, and obviously sometimes it feels like every other year in the NBA draft, or really every year where you have a player that is drafted after the top 10, and so on, where you feel like it's a crapshoot and they come up. Look at Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah,
You know, so I feel like obviously I'm not gonna sleep on anyone, but LaMelo has to be the favorite. I feel like he will win it. Just keep an eye out for Hayes.
yeah. I definitely agree with you here. I'm like, I really do like this, especially with the fact that he's gonna have the ball in his hands most of the time.
Yeah.
Charlotte's gonna be a bad team. They
Yeah.
might be. They might like. I think their ceiling for them is like making it to one of them play-in seeds, like to try to go into the play-in tournament. I think that's probably their ceiling.
Yeah.
But LaMelo Ball's gonna have the ball in his hand most of the time. No pun intended. Um, and I think I just think like, he's gonna have some good opportunities there in Charlotte. And I think, like you said, I saw him as the best player in this draft. And although I am not a big fan of the Gordon Hayward signing at all, I think that he's going to help him, try to navigate through this league. It's good to have a veteran there at the end of the day. And I think that, yeah, LaMelo Ball probably like just because of opportunity and like situation he's in, he definitely has the best shot at the Rookie of the Year. I do like the Killian Hayes pick though.
Yeah.
I was really hoping he was going to get drafted by the Phoenix Suns at number 10, just because
Yeah.
like I think like him being tutored by Chris Paul could do wonders for his career. And now he's kind of in a mess of a situation in Detroit, but hopefully you're right. I really do like the kid, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I hope I could definitely see like a dark horse Rookie of the Year candidate as well,
Yeah.
especially like,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, sorry, New York wanted him too, just to add to the New York
Yeah.
misery.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Who do they got? They got Toppin, right? Obi
Yeah,
Toppin.
Toppin. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's a solid pick in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, but I don't know. He's one of them older rookies, and I think like I
Yeah.
mean he's obviously in the Rookie of the Year race as well, just because he could score the basketball. And most of the time, if you can score the basketball, you're probably gonna win Rookie of the Year. That's just
No,
what,
for sure. As long as you can shoot. Yeah.
as long as you can like score. I mean that's like it's basically like whoever's the highest scoring average wins Rookie of the Year. But yeah, I'm definitely agree with you there. LaMelo is probably the top pick here. Let's go on to the final one here. I haven't talked about my Raptors and it feels like forever.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about like my Raptors here. Obviously with the moves that they lost out on Serge Ibaka, they lost out on Marc Gasol. I mean, they still kind of recovered well. They brought in Alex Len. They also brought in people like DeAndre Bembry, Aaron Baines as well. That's probably going to be a starting center for this year.
Yeah.
And it feels like that time of year where the Raptors are going to continually get disrespected by the American media. So here's my statement for you. The Raptors will still be a top 4 seed this year. Do you rock with it? Are you neutral on it? Or are you going to walk away from it?
I'm gonna rock it. Top four is definitely possible, especially in the East. I'm not saying that that's the only reason why, but I like the Raptors. I like them a lot more than what some people do. But here's the thing. So the one thing I didn't like is, and it was a priority, Van Fleet. I feel like they gave him more money. More money than what they should have.
Yeah,
My opinion, I was a little iffy on that, but he's a very important piece to this team. Now, the reason why, and even though the Raptors aren't going to be playing in their home court for
yeah,
the upcoming season, man, I like Nick Nurse, so I got a good coach. They have for grown-ups maturity in their locker room with players. Van I like the example that Van Fleet sets. Lowry and Alex Len and Aaron Baines are some good additions to that basketball organization. And I think the number one thing, obviously, I think we can both agree on that this thing is going to hinge on is going to be a Siakam and how he performs. And I feel like it was a slight dip last season. Would you agree with me?
um, he had a good season. I think like the bubble
Yeah.
just kind of like showed that he just needs to like really expand his game. Yeah,
Yeah. So looking at that bubble, I feel like there was a slight dip.
yeah,
And look, it's circumstances that aren't normal, but we
yeah,
do have to adjust. And obviously, even though that they're not going to be in home court, and it sucks. Being away from home, people sucks. It
yeah.
does. These
Definitely
guys
does.
have places there, and not to say that they're not going to get by. Well, obviously, they have the money to,
Yeah,
but it's a mental thing, and they're going to be away from home the entire season. And for me, in my opinion, I feel like this team does get disrespected a lot. I feel like though Van Fleet and Lowry, as long as you have them back, again, you add those centers to your squad, and you have Nick Nurse, who in my opinion is probably the best game planner when it comes to a game of basketball that there is in the business right now. I feel like it means and they have all the tools to finish top four in the East without a doubt. Now, I may have not picked them to be perennial championship, contenders
yeah,
in the East, but I feel like they're a very tough out. They're a very tough team to count out. They're a very tough team to beat. And I feel like, like last season in the bubble, the winner of, the Boston and Toronto series, they were beat, man. They were beat. It was as intense as a 7-game series
serious. Yeah,
gets, in my opinion.
yeah,
So, I mean, they have potential, man, to make some noise and to really give teams a run for the money. Top four, though, yes, that is very
yeah,
possible, in my opinion.
yeah. I'm actually gonna disagree with you here. I'm okay with it. That's like my one like neutral point on. Mostly because of the fact I think the top three seeds are in the East are kind of set. You have the Milwaukee Bucks, you have the Brooklyn Nets, you have the Boston Celtics. Whatever you order, you want to put them in. It's really up to the person, but I think it's gonna be those three at the top. And then there's basically a crapshoot for four and below. And there's like a lot of teams kind of like in that mix. We talked about the Wizards. Like, who knows what they're gonna be with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. Who knows if it's gonna be, especially in the regular season. Like Russell Westbrook shows out, especially at least in the regular season.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure, we can
Yeah.
agree on that.
So they have a chance at that fourth seed. You could talk about the Indiana Pacers, who people don't talk about, but they basically have the same team as last year. So who knows like what they're going to be next year.
TJ
Um,
Warren.
TJ Warren, whatever, man. But you also have to keep in mind, the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, like, who knows what they're gonna do? They've made some big moves this offseason, and you just never know. Um, with like, especially
Yeah,
like in this like whole new situation with like no like fans and stuff like that, you just never know what's gonna happen. In that sense, like, I just think that like you say that the East is kind of weak. I just think it's kind of like every year there's like a lot of teams in the same bracket, and I think that's what kind of like makes it hard to predict for this upcoming season. So yeah, the Toronto Raptors, I think they got a little bit worse in terms of losing out on Marc Gasol, losing out on Serge
yeah,
Ibaka, but at the same time, they did pretty well getting the two big men there, and they also drafted pretty well. I really like Malachi Flynn coming in as like a third or maybe a backup point guard in the future.
yeah.
And also, I think like their second round pick, I'm also a pretty big fan of as well. But I just think that it's going to be tough, especially playing in a new environment. It's thing is going to like kind of affect them. And obviously, like, those two big men are definitely going to be huge losses. I mean, like I said, there's just too many people fighting for that 4th seed as well. I mean, I could see them getting it, but we haven't even talked about Miami Heat. Like I don't even know if they're like part of those top 3 teams, but they're still in it.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, there's just too many teams kind of like fighting for that 4th to 8th seed, and I think it's going to be like kind of tough for the Raptors to be in it. But yeah, I mean, I could see them getting the 4th seed, but it's definitely going to be really hard. But yeah, those are our thoughts on those upcoming season headlines. Let us know in the comment section of this video or the Instagram post whether you like it or whether you agree or not. And yeah, this was a really good episode. Thank you, Joe, for coming on.
For sure, man. Very happy to come on anytime, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with this upcoming season happening, we definitely will have Joe like throughout the season, especially like with the current NBA news that is happening and stuff like that. So yeah, just expect him to be on the channel and stuff. And yeah, are you excited for this NBA season upcoming?
I'm so ready, man. I'm starting to see some of those games, like the Christmas games and everything, man. I'm so pumped for basketball.
Yeah, especially like the opening night. It's gonna be freaking Warriors Nets, and then the Battle of LA. Man, this is
Yeah.
gonna be. I'm so excited for the NBA season upcoming. And before we go on, I mean, I think I think I was supposed to ask you this like when you were talking about the early with the stuff with COVID. But how do you feel about 48 positive cases so far? Like when they did the test, like how do you feel about that?
It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
I feel like it's naive to think that they weren't gonna get any positive tests, especially that they're not in the bubble right now.
yeah,
It's not concerning right now. Like I feel like if there's a team or there's an organization that's earned our trust on how to handle Corona, it's the NBA and Adam Silver.
yeah,
So it's expected. I mean, all these guys are home. I know that some people, I even though it's their responsibility, I guess some people can't handle being quarantined enough. You know what I mean?
yeah,
There's some people that go off the rails for whatever reason, man, and even that's up to them. Also, they're human beings. No one's perfect. They're gonna go out, and there's a lot of responsible people right now, though, that are responsible and are very careful that still end up catching it, man. So
yeah,
there's still unknowns, man, when it comes to this thing. Obviously, it's expected that they're going to get positive tests, especially since they're not in a bubble anymore.
yeah.
And obviously, I'm sure like the league will have a contingency plan just in case if this thing starts to spiral out of control.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's probably like even like you said, like if any league has gained our trust in terms of like trying to handle COVID, it's definitely the NBA. And I think a lot of like what's going to happen this season in terms of like positive cases kind of has to do kind of with the culture of the team. Like if they're like really
Yeah,
like strict about stuff like that, they're not going to be positive cases. But as seen in the NFL, I mean, if you're not like really like taking it as seriously, a la the Tennessee Titans, a la other teams like in the NFL, it just spreads like so quickly. And like if you don't treat it right, like if you don't take it like seriously enough, then this type of stuff is going to happen. So
for sure.
they're definitely going to have to plan for that. But I do trust the NBA and its policies. But yeah, I think this is where we're going to sign off. Joe, any last remarks about your podcast and channel?
Tomorrow, be on the lookout. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you get your podcast from. My conversation with TJ Perkins will be up tomorrow, tonight. Top 10 NFL busts for the last decade. And next week, make sure you check out next week on Friday the latest episode of Critical Condition Sports Podcast with Spencer Breslin, actor
Yeah,
from the Santa Claus and all those Disney movies.
awesome, man. Yeah, I'm gonna have all of his links down in the description. Obviously, I'm gonna tag him in all the posts in terms of this podcast on my Instagram page. So please check that out. But yeah, this is where we're gonna end it. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. Take it easy, guys. Peace. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for some great content. Thank you again, Joe, for coming on and talking some basketball with us. Remember to check out all of his links. They can be found in the description. And remember, I'm going to be tagging him everywhere, so you should be able to find him. He's been on the show plenty of times enough. And yeah, just for stuff that's upcoming, I have a few guests lined up over the next few weeks. I am very excited to have those being released very soon. And with the NBA season coming up, I'm going to be doing my, my season previews, which will be happening this Monday and the next Monday. We're going to be looking at each conference. And my awards predictions, I'm hoping to be doing it with one of the guests upcoming, so please check that out. But yeah, thank you guys for all the support, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys.